So just a quick little video here to start of our 2006 Hyundai Elantra. She is battered and bruised. The nose of her, I took the top of the core support off and was trying to pull that back a little bit to see if I had any wires clipped in there or pinned. That could be why she shut off, and it would turn over, but it wouldn't fire. And shout out to my guy Shevitz and all his knowledge. He just said, hey man, I don't think you're getting fuel. He said, if it's turning over, but it's not, you're not smelling fuel as you're turning over. He said, I don't think it's getting fuel. Sure enough, this little guy right here, a little 10 amp fuse, see if I can get it to focus, she popped. So at the end of the derby, probably about 20 minutes I ran, she was hot and it shut off. And it was after a hit to the nose, which like he said, I kind of spray foam it to try to be secure, but like he said, even that shaking that maybe one popped out or maybe one popped, that was it. She fired up. We are going to have another run, and we think she's got a lot of fight left in her. So I'll clean up the core, see if I can get the frame rails. As you can see, got bent back. There is my bumper. Again, the Caravan bumper, but maybe if I can beat that a little bit flat, and then I'll weld my Caravan bumper there, get rid of that. I'll loop the radiator lines, which works great. You just got to have that valve or pressure release little piece, which I do. And the back, a little bit of scrapes on the door, but the back, she'll be hard. We'll pull that back end up, compress it together, pack it as tight as we can, and the wheels are still straight on the back. So little bit of wrench time, but not much. We'll clean her up, and we think we've got a feisty little Elantra for run 2. So excited. It was a good run, the first one, got down to 3rd, but I think she's got a lot of fight left in her. So let's get her back together. So we've got her back in our garage stall for our derby work, and here is our game plan. You can see I pulled out there the extra radiators, I call it, for your tranny lines. You can see again the carnage. This bumper, the weld was still holding on top. It kind of folded up and in. The bumper's right over there. We'll try to probably flatten that out a little bit with the Sawzall so I can get in a kind of straighten that out, flatten it so I can get a good weld. With the Caravan bumper, we'll get it back on there. Of course, we'll pull out this radiator, all that stuff. We'll loop, again, our radiator lines. And just kind of clean up the front. Again, the core is pretty much wrecked. Even the sides here that have the lights, we're not worried about that. The hood here, we'll kind of just get it to round a little bit smoother down, but yeah, that's really it. I'll, again, get rid of this, and I'll anchor that and my hood to make it a little bit more stable up front, but we'll have that looped. Again, my dummy pipe plug is still in there, as well as my sensor, so all that's good. Replace the, again, little 10 amp fuse, but this, again, still secure and in pretty far. Maybe I'll look to see if I can move that anymore, but I don't think I will. So that's it up front, just kind of cleaning up and then getting a good kind of square area for on the frame rail for the bumper to be welded. Back here inside, really nothing needs done. However, what I'm probably going to do, in fact, I'm almost certain I am, we plan on running this at Crawford, which is a kind of like a pebble hard surface, and we're going to have the back kind of pulled in tight, and we're just going to keep the back to all the chaos at least as long as possible. So I'm planning on that folding in at least a little bit, and I don't want it anywhere close to my line. So probably what I'll do is like I did with the Accord, I'll unhook my lines. They're hooked up right here in essence where they kind of come up. Unhook them there, and I'll cut back in a little bit further, pretty much under the seat like I did with the Accord, and then I'll run it up right there so it's inside my kind of protective rear bar here and long away from all this. It can fold the whole way up to the bar, and it still won't be close to threatening those tank lines, because other than that, there's nothing dead back here. Back here in the back, of course, we'll take off the spares on both sides, kind of beat in and away the sheet metal that's kind of crumped up. It's just rubbing a little bit on the inside of that tire. And then same thing over here, take off, as I trip over my stand, this spare tire and kind of beat it up in, again, get it as tight and tucked in as it can. Unfortunately, I wrecked my trunk a little, as you can see. I ended up just clipping the arms there. It was bent down if you watch my Derby Aftermath video, and it was dragging. So I was trying on the trailer to get it at least bent up some, not only till I get off the trailer, but kind of get it in here, get up in the stand and start hitting with the sledge. Well, my father-in-law has a tractor, and I said, oh, I'll just get the tractor bucket, because I got a little bit up with just my jack and the weight of the car. I'm like, oh, I'll get my father-in-law's tractor bucket and just push down a little bit in the trunk and just kind of get that up a little bit more. Well, as I did that, it pulled the trunk not really down, but back, and I just couldn't get it to tuck back in. So a little bit of a blunder and a lesson learned on my part. Tuck the trunk first with a sledge. I should have just beat it down and then came and pressed on it, but still should be all right. I'll kind of bend these corners in with the sledge and tuck it in there and bend the top down. Might even take an old ratchet strap and wrap it around it just to kind of keep it kind of as compact as possible. And then we'll hit the sledge underneath and bend that up as much as we can so she's pretty hard in the back. So a little bit of carnage to clean up, but again, it was a good first run. Over here, I might hit the sledge to pop that a little bit, but not really much to do there. So yeah, we think she's got another good run. Plan on taking her about 3 weeks to the local fair near me, Crawford, PA. And hopefully some fun left in her, we'll say. So here we are, a little update progressing through. We've got the back end beat almost to where we want it. Again, went a little too far with the trunk there, but I was able to kind of beat it back in. Was able to get the bottom lifted up some. I'm probably gonna take the Sawzall and try to cut up in that a little bit so I can then beat that bottom right corner and even that middle up a little bit more, just so it's not dragging. But again, anyone that knows, you know, even though it doesn't look like much, it will be compact and it will be fairly hard. And as long as, you know, you're not doing huge cross track shots, back end should hold together at least for a while. So that's the mindset there. So pulled it into the father-in-law's big pole barn. So we're on the dirt because now we're going to relocate our fuel lines. Again, I probably should do this the first time. Plan on running the car twice, but you never really know. And it's just so easy to just whoop, slide it right through where the cap was there for the tank whenever it was all stock. But we are going to unhook. I have it hooked up right here. We're going to unhook there, and we're going to slide it in essence, right under the back of the seat so that where I'm splicing into the gas is, in essence, in front of my rear bar, so that if this starts folding up how I hope it will, to where I can keep the back end toward the carnage, save the front end as she's softer now. The fuel lines will not be a concern at all. It'll be dead from, in essence, my bar back. So as long as it's not dragging to where it won't let me move on the ground, I'll be all right. And then just the only other thing, again, up front, we're gonna try to bend this back a little bit straight, and then I'm gonna try to make a flat surface, and I'm gonna set on kind of the bottom, if you will, of the frame rail there, the front part, kind of like part of the core support that's still there. Same thing over here, flatten it out. I'm gonna set my Caravan bumper back on there and get as good of a weld as we can so the front end, we can at least defend ourselves. Again, loop lines, I have to clean that up a little bit. Just kind of threw that on there for now until we got everything taken care of, and then we'll finalize all that. So fuel and a little cleanup of the body, and hopefully ready to have some fun and maybe another good run before she's scrap. So just a little update as we're going through the carnage and kind of in the last phase, at least we believe. Up front, we've got our looped radiator lines, but it's not completely done yet. Not only am I going to get a higher kind of caliber clamp, if you will. In fact, these guys right here, to make sure that we have that not only the overflow, or yeah, the piece there that has the overflow to it. And again, that's the little piece you got to have if you're looping your lines. Make sure that's a good tight. Those won't hold well enough. Whenever there's a lot of pressure, those will blow right off. The ones there are probably good, but I'll probably put I4 of them. I'll put all 4 of these on, and then we'll fill her up with some fabric softener and water. So that's fairly simple. Adjust that line there a little bit and tuck it back in too, similar to how I did with my training lines. But up front, the other thing we're going to do is we are going to try to bang kind of back open, or straight, if you will, the end of the frame rails, which kind of folded up and in with my Caravan bumper, so that we can then probably try to get it flat, and then put on a good weld with our Caravan bumper again, so we're as hard as we can be up front. That will hopefully be strategic. The back hopefully folds up well with what we've done, and we'll just keep sending the back, but that is the plan. And the only other thing I want to point out front here, you can see here is a new wire running in to where our battery is. That is spliced into the positive. It's a smaller wire that runs to our starter. So in the process, whatever happened, which I mean, she was pretty battered and bruised, I didn't blow another fuse, but I seem to have a bad ground somewhere that's upsetting the electronics. So you turn the key on, the fuel cell primes like it should, you turn it over, it does nothing. So hooked that up, ran it in, just touch the positive once the terminals are on, and she starts right up. Just leave the key in the on position because as I said, everything, the fuel cell primes and everything, had a car do it before. I did it before. Shout out to Shevitz, who I was double checking with again. He helped me. It was a Sentra that had a bad ground 2 years ago and did a similar thing. So I didn't have to go all the way to the starter. The starter's back in the middle of the motor there. Just a horrific place to get to. But I followed the positive line out to here and just spliced in there and works fine. And then on the back, I mean, pretty simple. We're going to try to cut with the Sawzall up in kind of front of this kind of frame rail part in the back, so we can try to get that up a little bit more. Same thing here, we'll try to get it up a little bit more so that it's not bending down and then I can't go backwards. If it just folds up a little bit and in on the first couple of hits, it will just slide. Even if I'm with busted axles, it'll slide in essence on the harder surface at Crawford where I'm planning to run it. And I was going to adjust the fuel lines, however, getting underneath it and looking at it, how they run up, it's near impossible to not completely mess up my brake lines. So all I'm going to do is take the Sawzall and cut about 5 inches there, and then I'm just going to bend down and back that opening part, which I'll have a clear view of, and shouldn't be an issue until it's pressing the whole rear end. I mean, you know, even though it's pretty shrunk in the back now, it shouldn't be an issue until it's pressing right up to those lines, and then from there on, your nose forward. So that's it. Hopefully we can get the front beat out here and make her a little tougher. We'll see how it goes. So here she is, our second run, complete build, final look. You can see the carnage from round one, but round two, we think she still has some life left in her. The front wheels are straight, slight bow to the one wheel a little bit, the driver's side here, but she's straight and she still runs, and we think even though the body doesn't have a lot left to offer, we think she's got some fight in her, hopefully at least a fun run. So you can see, again, everything we've been doing in the video. Just kind of cleaned up a couple stuff at the end under the hood here. I'll pop in a second. Again, the welds, I mean, not ideal. The frame rails, again, folded back and kind of up and really disintegrated. You can see how I tried to almost fill with my weld. And again, talked with my buddy Lucas, shout out to him, and talking about welding and how he does stuff. Got a little bit of a better idea with my settings. I think my settings were a little off. That's why I wasn't getting as good a weld. But the metal was so beat up. The bumper's already been run, but that's not a big deal. But trying to just kind of rebuild it and make it as much as I can of a hold. But it's really just defensive. I mean, the plan is to have the back toward the carnage. We're heading to Crawford County Fair. Fast track, big track. And just let them slam the back in. It's a hard surface, so even if we're dragging some, as we don't have a lot of rear end to offer, should still be okay. And again, back here, just tried to get it up as much as I could. I don't want to say I need a torch. I mean, everyone needs a torch. I'm just not really skilled enough for it. But if I had a torch, I could get that back part cut and then bend it up in. I'm a little bit nervous about that. I really hope it hits in the first hit and kind of folds the top down and the bottom back a little further and up. And if it does, it will be hard like my Cobalt was at the beginning of the year. I ran at the Ring of Fire. It packed in tight. It looked almost exactly like this, packed in tight, and the whole derby, 30 minutes, I was back in solely almost because my front, I lost my bumper, had a bad weld and took a couple hard hits in the frame rail. So this one, again, you can see all the stock setup we always have. The bar is still in there tight. Fuel lines, again, I was going to move, but it's such a hassle underneath here, and my fuel lines for this tank, I couldn't reach over the dash to the motor. So I just kind of beat back open a little bit more and then out. And even if this is folding up big time, I'll be able to see that. And until it gets real close to those fuel lines, because it's running right along the rail here and then down, that right there is where I'm joining them, it will be fine. So that's the plan. Again, we got our trusty seat holder. Crawford is where I busted a seat. Didn't have the bar as well at that time. So we not only have the bar for support, but also that good armrest, and we'll keep the seat there. Battery box and the fuel tank, again, are as they were. Have the fuel tank about 3/4 of a tank. This fuel cell seems to be a little smaller. I had a little under a half a tank, and it wasn't getting enough fuel. So I kind of stopped and went back. Still got the Demolition Noob sticker on there. Still got the pretty sweet red, white, and blue. We'll put the American flags on it once we get there, because they'll rip off if we drive there with it. So quick look under the hood, and we're gonna load her. So again, under the hood, I just finished up a couple things. Got I think a good loop with not only the size of the hose, a little bit of a pinch on there in the corner. That's kind of typical, at least the way I do it with the hoses. But it's a good flow. Again, got those high pressure kind of clamps. I usually just leave the stock ones where it mounts on the motor, put the high pressure ones there. I had a set of 4, so I just put them all on there. So good and tight. Again, have the overflow pointing out, not into my motor electronics or my training lines there. They'll loop, because that will be blowing steam, fabric softener again, and water as she's getting hot. Again, dummy sensor we have still. You can see her there, secured. And then again, we have the pipe plug, AutoZone pipe plug. Got a 4-pack in there, so that way the motor will cook and the computer won't shut her down. A little bit of an issue just to point out here. My shifting arm, this from the Derby, actually shifted forward a little bit. I loosened it and then slid it back to its original position and tightened it. Well, then it still wasn't quite shifting well. I put a little WD-40 around the kind of gear shifter here where it goes into the transmission. I think that was a little hard. But this guy here was a little loose, and there was play, and it wasn't shifting all the way into gears. But we had my son, shout out to him, he got in the car and he was shifting. I said, so I got a little bit tighter that bolt, and it seems like it's good and sturdy, and the WD-40 I think helped break loose a little bit too, the shifter there. Fuse box again on this frame rail, and then you can see how close the pulley is on that frame rail. So hopefully last minute, we'll run for a while, have some fun. Otherwise, we're going to keep the front end as clean and safe as possible, but those are concerns. Fuse box, I got in as far as I could and spray foamed it. It's secure. That guy there, the pulleys are real close. The hood, once I get there and go through inspection, I'll kind of beat down the nose a little bit more and tie her down tight. But that's her. We're hoping she has a good run in her again, at least some fun. Crawford's a big fair, huge grandstand, huge crowd, fast track. There's always 20 to 25 at least in the stock class. So it'll be busy, hopefully some fun, and we'll see the stripes running up and down the track. I'm about to fire up. I wanted to mention again, there is, again, our line run directly to the starter. Touch it to the positive. She fires right up as I have a background somewhere after the first Derby. So should work well.